tubes and clarity. That's something you don't normally hear in the same piece of equipment in the same breath. Well, for the second time in my reviewing career, I found a piece that has those two qualities. Hi everyone, Mark from Audio Pursuit. I appreciate you taking a few minutes of your day to watch my video, and I hope that if you're in the market for a preamplifier, that this video helps you out. If you've been watching my channel for the past 15 months, then you know that I'm absolutely bowled over by the ability of Thomas Tan's Galion TS P75 amplifier for $14.95. It truly is a fantastic performer. It has enough power for my current sucking Magnapan 0.7s and the delicacy to provide tremendous detail via any speakers I connect them to. When Thomas Tan announced that he had released the P75 preamplifier, I got myself in line to review one. However, the popularity of the P75 has been so great that Thomas only has a few of them available for review. So I waited. Well, time kept going and going. So finally, when I saw one pop up on the used market from reviewer Steve Huff, I contacted Thomas and asked him if he'd be offended if I reviewed one that another reviewer was selling. Thomas, being the good guy that he is, said he had absolutely no problem. So I contacted Steve, plunked down a very reasonable amount for the P75, and awaited its arrival. Now, I've spent the last 2 months listening virtually every day to the Galion TS P75. And if you watched other reviews, then you already know this is one special unit at its current price of $19.95. Unfortunately, it went up due to tariffs. When I watched Thomas's video introduction of the P75, I was so very excited as he announced that there were 4 vacuum tubes in the unit. Now, 35 plus years ago, if not more, I had a Conrad Johnson PB preamplifier, which I foolishly mated to an Adcom GFA 555. The match was horrible, and being young and foolish, I sold the PV7. It was only later that I realized how ignorant I was. Not long ago, I was able to hear one while visiting an acquaintance a few hours from my home. The PV7 sounded just as I remembered, a bit hissy, but insanely warm and comfortable. The Galion TS P75 is a different beast. While it does have warmth, it is not nearly as thick or syrupy like the PV7 is. Instead, it is warm in a subtle way, and secondly, very clear for anything near its price point. In many ways, it reminded me of an audio research tube preamplifier that I heard a couple of different times a few decades back. Visually, the TS P75 uses the same faceplate design as its matching amplifier, a brushed black aluminum front face with 2 vertical stripes that are lined above the nice quality feet. One difference is that inside the left vertical strip is a sensor for the remote. In the middle, between the 2 vertical stripes, are 5 buttons, all of which has an LED inside the center that all glow blue when engaged, with the exception of the power button, which, as you can see right now, is red when powered off from this front button. Upon powering on, it will blink blue for about a full minute while the tubes warm up. Now, some may be turned off by this, but I find it a nice touch, as tubes do need a bit of warm-up time before playing music. Now, from left to right, you have the 4 line in buttons that glow blue when pressed, as you will see in just a minute. Inside the right vertical strip is the volume knob. And finally, along the right edge, up top, in a large font is the TS75 lettering, and on bottom, in a small font, is the words designed by and 2 Chinese characters for the name of the designer that Thomas Tan worked with. Now, before going to the back panel, I want to compliment Thomas on the remote that he chose. This is a solid aluminum case that is quite heavy and about 4 inches long and about 1.5 inches wide with curved sides. The 6 buttons on top feel almost like ball bearings, with the mute and standby on the top row, the input minus or plus button in the middle to go up and down between the sources, and finally the bottom row is the volume up and down buttons. To access the batteries, you need a small hexagon wrench to remove the 4 screws. But still, it is a wonderful remote. It's also important to note when adjusting the volume with the remote control, the knob, as you can see, actually goes up or down. And you'll see an even smaller blue LED engaged on the knob to show where the volume is set at. The back panel, from left to right, starts with your 4 vertical RCA inputs, followed by 2 sets of RCA outputs, which is really a good deal in my opinion. Then a trigger switch. Then as you get close to the left side, a horizontal toggle switch for normal or noise reduction, and below that, a screw for a grounding wire. And then finally, your power rocker switch and socket. Now, much has been made of Thomas not including balanced outputs. And I do have to agree with those saying it was a missed opportunity. However, we need to keep in mind a truly balanced design would have had upped the cost significantly. And I believe Thomas was definitely trying to stay under the $2,000 threshold. And while it is a bit disappointing, I respect his decision. Inside, along the left in the back, you'll find a very nice turtle power supply unit with separate left and right channel sections. About 75% of the inside is actually taken up with the left and right channel. There are capacitors for each side, and in the middle are the 4 vacuum tubes. The quality of the parts is truly outstanding, with parts from Jupiter Audio, much like Thomas's speakers, Clarity, which are the blue caps, and there are 6 of each for the channel, and Solon caps for each channel as well. I should mention that the tubes have now been upgraded to the PS Vane 12AT7S with 2 per channel. Since this has been a piece from another reviewer, I knew it had plenty of hours on it. So therefore, I hooked it right up and let the tubes warm up for about a half hour or so before listening each day. The rest of the equipment consisted of a WIM Ultra music streamer playing via Roon or Qobuz. From there, the signal went into a Denafrips Iris DDC and then the Aries 2 DAC before coming into the TS P75. From there, it was outputted into the A75 amplifier powering the Buchart S400 Mark IIs for initial listening. As fine as the TS A75 amplifier is, I was quickly convinced that Thomas stepped up his game another notch with the P75. Musically, starting off, I decided to give the Thomas's preamplifier a serious test by playing the hottest treble recording I know, Donald Fagen's Kamakiriad, The top frequencies in this are honestly overcooked, much like the bass in his album Morph the Cat. The 4 vacuum tubes, without bringing attention, tempered that super sharp edge, kind of sanding it just a tad, but still fully aware of what this recording is like. But even more impressive is what you hear between the songs, which is nothing. Vacuum tubes, as any educated audio fan knows, impart some secondary harmonics into the signal. This usually ends up creating softness with a hiss. The P75 doesn't import this in any noticeable amount unless I absolutely strained with my ear up against the tweeter. The last time I experienced something like this was with a piece by Steve Deckert of Deckware fame, who is absolutely notorious in the audio community for demonstrating that tubes can provide a truly black background. Thomas has all but equaled that feat. Switching over to solo piano concertos, the notes were in full bloom, but never heavy. Yes, there was that subtle sweetness and a touch of warmth, but still, every bit of delicacy to move from one note to another with the lightness of a butterfly. I know that sounds silly, but really that's what it's like. Now, the mid-range has an incredibly full range of color, but not coloration. The sound is vibrant, full, rich. Listening to Pink Martini's No Hey Problema, the bongos were incredibly natural and rich, while the piano just danced away. There's a point about 3/4 of the way through the song where the keys are touched in a danceful way, like going down the steps with ever-increasing intensity. The P75 was effortless, and in the background, the bass provided a wonderful tempo and accent sound that didn't overwhelm. Switching over to Trombone Shorty and his song Do To Me, the horn section with the lead trombone was never harsh or thin, nor was it sluggish at all, even with the rather thundering bass guitar line that is very toe-tapping. The vocals, while slightly adjusted with digitation to assist the vocalist, kept the overall fun, happy nature of the song. The mid-song trombone solo is so familiar of early Chicago, but with even more audacity. Total texture was right down the middle as far as being properly reproduced. This is a song that everybody should have on a special playlist, as it is just a whole lot of fun. The P75 just revels in playing it. Moving on to female vocals, my rediscovery of the beautiful voice in the ballads by Hart continued to leave me awestruck. The P75 has taken it to the next level in my system. These ladies were young when they recorded these songs. The combination of excellent components with the capacitors and the 4 tubes, along with the terrific power supply design, just continues to amaze me. Just before filming this review, I was listening to the track Just the Wine, and it's an excellent example of where you hear the soaring vocals of Nancy Wilson and then a very simple acoustic guitar melody. The fact that while the frequencies between the vocals and guitar were in that same range, yet there was no mistaking a very definitive separation, even when the violins kicked in as a part of the studio recording. In Hart's song Without You, that classic, during the intro, there is some cymbal hits up near the bell that just ricochet in a way that I've never heard with such detail. That became even more apparent when I replayed all these songs again and again with Fritz's Carbon 7 Mark II speakers, which I'll have a review coming up soon. This track is just another ballad that reminds us of how incredible Ann Wilson's vocal instrument is. Even pulling up their tribute to Led Zeppelin at the Kennedy Center honors a few years ago, she still has it. And even though the recording is not great, it's still so very impressive to hear. Listening to Elton John's Someone Saved My Life Tonight, the short mid-song drum solo, the absolute clarity of the drum hits on the toms and the snare drum just explode with no sloppy carryover. All the while, in the background, you get the synthesizer with this very high note that's kind of piercing through everything. Yet there is no added fuzz other than what is naturally there in the recording. The P75, whether it is pure solid state or even Class D amplification, keeps it true. But yet, I never felt irritated, which I have a tendency to do with such high-pitched frequencies. That tells me that Thomas's overall design and component part choices are doing what he intended, being musical first. Budget preamplifiers, whether they be from the various HiFi manufacturers or even other brands, just can't compete because the price point that they're trying to hit is too tight for them to invest in the quality of Solon's, Clarity, and Jupiter Audio components. Thankfully, Thomas avoided that trap. And of course, if you know Thomas's story, when he builds these pieces of equipment, he spends dozens upon dozens upon dozens of hours trying out different capacitors and resistors and such in order to get the sound where he wants it, which is musical, natural, a little bit of warmth, but with all the detail absolutely possible. For those of us who enjoy listening to the grandeur of large symphonies, the TS P75 is a gift for its ability with all those components that allows it to find and present not only the detail, but the proper spacing in the orchestra so that instruments don't blend together into mush. The various woodwinds can be picked out from one another very easily. The string instruments, especially the cello and the bass, give us this warm richness that the P75 nails, and a sense of authority that preamplifiers such as my Peachtree Predac just can't compete with. Well, the TS P75 definitely is at its best with acoustical instruments. It doesn't mean that I can't enjoy some good, hard-charging rock and roll. Just the opposite. I spent one afternoon enjoying Molly Hatchet's Flirtin' with Disaster album. It was a wild ride back to my high school days when I'd listen to that album in the car because it was too much for my parents at home. And it allowed me to get amped up about some sort of event. While not an audiophile quality recording, this preamp was able to make the driving guitars and the intense drumming and that unique southern twang a whole lot of fun and sound so good that it truly triggered some memories back to the late 1970s. If I had any wish for the TS P75, beyond of course the XLR capability, is that I wish it had an internal phono preamp section. With Thomas's passion for giving the owner a true musical experience, having that would have been phenomenal. But we can't have everything. And frankly, it would have thrown the price point another $500 up. And so I understand perfectly not having that choice. Obviously, Besides the matching Galion TS A75 amplifier, the P75 is truly a universal unit that has become a foundational piece of my reference system. It's built to perform well with Class D amplification. The Peachtree GAN 400 was an exceptional match, providing some textural body and soul to the incredibly clean GAN FET sound. Much the same holds true when I paired the P75 to my vintage Adcom GFA 545-2 for a couple of days, which definitely improved the sound of that piece of vintage gear. Looking back and watching other reviewers, such as Ed of Old Guy HiFi, who came up with the same final conclusion I have, that the Galion TS P75 is a preamplifier that can go well truly with any power amp, and some become an absolutely phenomenal match. A few of you will say that by purchasing this preamplifier, I predetermined my likeness for it. Nothing could be farther from the truth. As Thomas Tan himself pointed out after I told him what I paid for it, his reply was simple. If you don't like it, you're not going to lose a penny when you put it up for sale. In that regard, he is so right. But I'm definitely not selling it, as I feel like I've finally come back full circle to those many years ago with the Conrad Johnson PB7. I now have that tube preamplifier. The TS P75 truly justifies my 2025 award for musicality, as it is an absolutely beautiful auditory experience. Therefore, I give it an absolutely full 5-star review recommendation and place it among the top 5 components I've ever had in my own system. Once again, thanks for stopping by and watching. If you find what I had to say helpful, please like and subscribe so I can continue to build this channel and get more equipment in for review. And I hope sometime today or tomorrow, you push away the outside world, find an album you haven't listened to in a while, and get lost in the music. Take care, everyone.